Hello everyone, I'm Silvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel and welcome to One Deck Gone Wild. I've seen this video originally on Julie's channel and I think that it's a bit of a discussion that happened one day on a Discord group, and it looked so much fun to do that. I really had to join in, but I did have a bit of a problem in choosing the deck. And well, you know, going through all the questions, there's actually 37 questions or prompts. And if you want to do a VR to this deck, you don't need to answer to all of those 37 questions. As a matter of fact, I actually skip a couple of questions. But going through all of them, I actually felt like the best deck for me to bond this way with those questions would have been the Yokai Yochi Tarot by Bybee. And the reason why I'm also going to show you the Tarocchi Giapponesi, so the Japanese tarot by Laura Tuan and Fabrizio Spadini, published by the Vecchi, and the Oracle, the Camille Yokai by Caroline Dubin and illustrated by Laurence Rasson. Well, the reason why I'm showing you these ones is because this deck is actually out of print, unfortunately, the Yokai Yochi. There had been talks about a reprint, and there was actually a reprint, I think, last year, but it was very limited. And because we were still in the middle of the lockdown, there was no shipping to countries such as Australia and New Zealand. So I know that a lot of people missed out on that print as well. And because the main reason why I chose to talk about this deck is the theme of this deck. So this deck, Yokai, the name Yokai in Japanese, spelled this way obviously, refers to spirit, and it's something that I absolutely love about the Japanese culture. Well, I love everything about the Japanese culture. I love the country, I love the people, I love the food, I love the culture, but something that is actually quite famous, not just in Japan, but let's say pretty much everywhere, is the myths and legends of these yokai, so of these spirits. And this deck is fantastic in showing you, for each and every card, there's 78 cards with a different yokai or spirit per card. But I also really like the fact that you can have, if you cannot find this one because it's out of print, you can actually find the same concept in this tarot. It's an Italian tarot deck, but being a tarot deck, you don't necessarily need, you know, the description in English because you will know how to use it. It does follow the RWS system. It just uses yokai, so spirits, to represent the cards. And also this oracle deck is actually really, really interesting, the Camille Yokai. Although I have to say that in this case, you do need to speak French. So this is a French edition. I do not think that there's been an English one. And you do kind of need to speak French because there's no keywords on the cards. So I'll show you later, but basically there's just the title, the name of the yokai, and you do have to refer back to the book. And the book is obviously in French. So in order to appreciate more this deck, you probably have to go back to the guidebook and you probably have to understand the French language. But let's have a look at the tarot deck, so the Yokai Yochi Tarot. So the reason why I've chosen this deck, which is basically the first question, is because, as I said, I really love traveling and I love Japan. And I love myths and legends, and this deck combines all of these things together. The second question is, what's your favorite set of minors? So it could be the choose, the 3, the 8, etc. And I would have to go with the choose, because I don't know why, but when I look at this set of minors, so the choose, they're just really so interesting and quirky and funny. So we got the Two of Cups, for example, which is really odd. It looks like it's a very tall person carrying a small person, but what they lack in height, for example, the person that is small, what they lack in height, they actually have really, really long arms, whereas the person that has really, really long legs has really short arms. Therefore, they actually complement each other. And I think that is the sweetest thing, and it's one of the best things to interpret the Two of Cups as well. And then we've got the Two of Swords, you know, this animal, which is this yokai, this spirit, which is actually covered in some kind of a sheet. And obviously they lie in between two swords, so they need to be very careful on what to do and how to move, because they can get hurt, and that really represents the fact that they cannot see what they're doing, which is a sense of being stuck between a rock and a hard place. You feel like whenever you're in a Two of Swords kind of situation. And I really like the sense of motion and the movement and the chaos and the whimsical kind of atmosphere that we've got into the Two of Coins, which is, you know, representing this kind of, it's like a twister, it's like a vortex kind of situation. And, you know, there's this really precarious sense of balance of these two coins that are the opposite side of this yokai that is somehow trying to catch them, which is also very specific for the meaning of the Two of Coins. I think it's a very good interpretation. And I just love this card, the Two of Staves, or, you know, wands, because it really gives you the possibility of looking ahead. I really like the fact that the directionality of the card is showing you the yokai, well, the two yokais in this case, just moving forward in the direction that is looking outside of the card. So your business is done here, you're actually quite happy, or, you know, you need to move on somehow. And it's a very nice interpretation of the card as well. So definitely the set of choose. Now, the next prompt is, what card reminds you to relax when it comes up? And for me, it has to be the Ten of Coins, which it's very funny. There's a very funny story that is associated to this yokai. So this yokai is called Odonovan, and it's a giant catfish, as you can tell. I love the fact that it looks like it's, you know, cheeky, and really giant, cheeky kind of catfish. You know catfish, you'll know that they have this thing about going to the bottom of the river, wherever they are, and then they just try and cover, by moving very quickly, they just try and cover themselves in sand, basically. And but this catfish is so big, so atrociously big, that when it actually does that, it provokes earthquakes. So basically there's all this kind of literature and these artistic representations of people trying to calm this calm it down and try and stop it from moving, because it's literally provoking earthquakes everywhere. So this card is literally telling me to calm down, to relax and calm down, because when you move, when you're this big and you move this much, you're actually, the effect is domino effect, and it's a huge one. So the next prompt is about the favorite representation of the moon card, and I just have to love this card. So this card looks like a rabbit, right? So this is basically a myth that says that when you're looking at the moon, you see the dark spots on the moon, and they take on a shape of a rabbit. And it's not just a Japanese lore or myth, it's actually originated in China. And they also have this myth about looking at the moon and identifying the dark spots on the surface of the moon with the shape of this gigantic rabbit. I really like it because it gives you the idea of that kind of link between what we don't know and the you know, the moon that represents what we don't know, and the light of the moon that is never bright enough to be bringing clarity, but in such a way that we still want to understand what it is, and we still want to understand what we don't know. And so we try and give some explanations that will sound true to us, that we will be able to recognize. And so that's how we recognize the shape of the dark spots on the moon as a rabbit. I think it's really poetic. And then the next prompt is about the what card makes you feel nostalgic. And I had to go with the Lovers card because the legend behind it is that these are the women that lost their man at sea. And, you know, obviously the men are represented by the skeleton, and the women are still mourning for them. They're still in grief, they're grieving. And it's something that it's very, very deep and very touching and emotional, because obviously you must imagine that it's very rare. If you lose someone at sea, it's gone. And there's no closure, obviously. There's not, you don't have, you know, a gravestone to go to. And it's something that in itself, it's a very melancholic, a very sad myth. But it's also very powerful for, you know, to represent the Lover's card, because it really gives you the idea of this undying love, this bond between two people. Even though I do tend to read the Lover's card as the card of the choice, but I do recognize that when it comes to a traditional iconography, the lovers are always represented as two people. And so I actually really like this representation of the lovers. The next prompt is, what card shifts your perspective? And I'm guessing it refers to shifting your perspective out of the traditional way or the usual way you would read the card. So for me, it has to be the Eight of Cups. Now this card, apart from the fact that it's actually really beautiful, but the meaning of this legend is, well, you'll see here foxes. Now the foxes are called kitsune in Japanese. And the kitsune, the fox in the Japanese law, is a very powerful, very, very magic kind of animal. And most of the time is also seen as a shapeshifter. And let me tell you, it's actually very common in many cultures to see foxes as shapeshifters. And I really do like the fact that you can pick up a culture from, you know, from Japan, so from the eastern side of the world, and compare it to legends from, for example, the Sami culture. The Sami culture in the northern part of Scandinavia also see legends with the fox as a shape-shifting animal. In many cases, for example, a fox is an old lady that is waiting for you by the side of the road at night, and if you don't pick her up, you will have a lot of bad luck. But there's also a lot of legends about foxes in many other cultures, and it's always, no matter what the idea, whether it's a good animal or a bad animal, in any case, the idea is that it's a very magical kind of animal. In the Japanese culture, foxes are very important, and they are represented in many different forms of cult. For example, you will see foxes representing guardians of temples, so they will be depicted at the front of the temples as guardians. But there's a lot of myths related, yokai related to foxes. For example, when there's a unexpected storm, like a summer unexpected storm, it is said, the legend says that it's because there's a fox wedding going on, and the foxes don't want the humans to go out and about and, you know, and disturb their wedding, so they keep them away with this storm. But in many cases, there's a lot of references to the foxes trying to keep their lives separate from the humans. And in the Eight of Cups is exactly the same thing. So you will see that these foxes are actually carrying these are fires, small fires, and they're carrying them around, and they're putting them in here and there. And this legend says that they're doing that to keep humans away. And I really love this card, first of all, because it reminds me of a legend that we also have in Italy, not referred to foxes, but referred to the fact that there were these spirits in the forest, that they were just creating these magical bluish almost flames, and obviously and that was a warning to keep away, to stay away from whenever you found one of these blue flamed fires, that was your key, that was your warning to step away. And but also because it gives me a different perspective on the Eight of Cups. I mean, we also always look at the Eight of Cups as if the person makes the choice of leaving, going away from a situation that is generally broken because of their own volition. They are leaving because they realize that that doesn't serve them anymore and they have to leave. What if it were related to a situation where this person is actually not wanted? So the foxes are keeping the humans away because they don't want the humans to disturb them in their lives. So I think that it's mutual. It shifted my perspective on the Eight of Cups, because in some cases you will have someone leaving, but it's also because they're not fitting in. And it's not just their choice, but it's also the choice of someone who's left behind, which to me is actually the opposite of the Five of Pentacles. So in the Five of Pentacles, we see someone left out in the cold, but there is one deck, one tarot deck, I think it's called the Vice Versa, but I could be wrong. It's a Los Carabel deck in which you have the traditional card at the front, and then you turn the card, and at the back, instead of having all the usual backs, there's the same card. So if you're talking about the Five of Coins, there will be a Five of Coins in the back as well, but it shows you something that has been missed in the perspective, in the depiction of the front of the Five of Coins. So in the back of the Five of Coins in that deck, you will see someone actually crying, someone inside the building that has excluded the ones that are leaving, and they're still inside and they're crying because they actually, it's not a separation that is felt like a release or a liberation by anyone. It's a very painful one, felt both by who's leaving and both by who's left behind. The Eight of Cups doesn't seem to be the case if we read it this way, for example, which I think is extremely important, and I think it's extremely interesting. Whenever we see a deck that actually changes our perspective on the interpretation of a card, it's always very welcome. And I may not agree with some of the interpretation, but this one is actually pretty spot on for me, and I really like it. So the next prompt is favorite animal that is represented, and it had to be the kitsune, so the fox. In this case, it's very beautiful because, as I was saying before, there's a lot of cards in this deck that actually refer to the kitsune as a yokai. So the kitsune is seen as a magical animal that have their own lives, they have their own independent lives, and in this case we have the bride and the groom. So it's a kitsune, the marriage of the kitsune, and it's very beautiful. And obviously they are the empress and the emperor. I love the way they're depicted. I love the fact that they are so focusing, but in a very humble way, they're focusing on that beautiful day that is going to be, and they both have their eyes closed, which, to me, it tells about the solemnity, how very important and almost out of this world this experience is, and this event is. And it's a very beautiful way to show the empress and the emperor. So the next prompt is a very interesting one, and it's called which card reminds you the most of Heartbreak? I had to go through all the deck because there were a few, and I was really hesitating with the lovers because of, representing the wives still mourning their husbands lost at sea. That would definitely speak of heartbreak for me. But then I looked at the interpretation of the Knight of Staves, so the Knight of Wands, and I knew that I had to go with this one. So this yokai is called Goze, and it's as you can see, it's a massive kind of bull, very strong, very powerful, very threatening as well. And this is a kind of a guardian of hell. So he's the guardian of the doors of hell. And his job is, if someone escapes from those doors, that gate, then his job is to bring them back to hell. And that, to me, it has to speak of heartbreak, because imagine, so it's not enough that you're in hell, but if you eventually manage to escape, imagine how hard it would be to actually escape hell. That, it's like, it will be all for nothing, because there's the Goze, which is going to catch you, is going to find you, catch you, and bring you back. And to me, it's a very sad card, because, on the one hand, I really do understand the reason why it's depicting the Knight of Staves, because the Knight of Staves is the faithful soldier. As the archetype of the soldier, it's the person that obeys the orders, even when the orders don't make sense, or even when the orders are, to eventually kill people, or in this case, to bring them back to hell. Because to me, it would be like, these misers, they've been through hell, they've literally been through hell, they've found the courage to escape, and you still want to bring them back. Just let them go, you know. I don't know. I think I'm personalizing this legend a bit too much. But what I mean is that it is heartbreaking for me, thinking that you've been through an ordeal and you make it through, but no, there's no hope for you, because even if you make it through, there's gonna be someone that brings you back. So that's heartbreak, absolutely heartbreak for me, and I really love it. I really love the fact that it refers to the king, the knight of staves, because it is that archetype of the soldier who will always obey the orders. The next prompt is, which card constantly follows you or appears from this deck? It had to be the Three of Coins, and I probably noticed this card more than others because it makes me laugh so much. Because as you can tell, these are actually flip-flops or tongs, depending on how you call them. I'm Australian, so I call them tongs, but they're called flip-flops, or you know, your Havaianas, however you want to call them. And it is so much fun because they're actually personified. It looks like a kind of a creature that has one eye and 4 legs, and they really, you know, they run around and they try and gather coins. So I always see this, and I tend to spot this card whenever it comes up, and therefore that's why I think it's a Stalker card, because I tend to notice it more than others because it's so much whimsical and it's so much fun, and it makes me laugh every time I see it. And then there's a couple of prompts, but what I'm going to answer now is the number 16. Which card would you hang in your living room? And that has to be the Death card. I've always been fascinated by death cards in any kind of deck. If you ask any of my friends what's the first card that Silvia wants to have a look at whenever she's deciding whether to buy a deck or not, they'll go, yeah, the death card, absolutely. As a matter of fact, they already know that. Whenever we have tarot chats with my friends and they're showing me the new decks, I'm always like, can you show me the death cards, please? It's just something that... it is in my opinion, it's a very, very powerful card, and therefore if it falls flat, chances are that I will not necessarily bond with that deck. Therefore that's the one card that I really need to see. There's other cards as well, obviously, but when I have a death card in a deck that it's really powerful, really beautiful, so much so that I would actually want to, if I had a print of it, I would actually hang it on the wall, then chances are I'm gonna love the deck. And truth be told, I did love this card, this death card in this deck immediately when I saw it, even before I actually bought the deck. This is all the ancestors. This is the ritual of burning the incense, and this way you honor all the ancestors, and it's just absolutely superb. I really love the fact that it connects the living with the dead in that kind of bridge that is represented by crossing the veil. And because it really recalls this Japanese ritual of burning incense, which ironically has become part of my rituals as well, because I was in Japan one of the many times I was there. I went to a matsuri, which is a festival, and I went to a very specific shop that was selling votive kind of incense, so incense that is used in rituals, specifically in these type of rituals. And I bought a box, and I was really I felt the importance of what I was doing in that moment, and I had lost already my mom and my auntie and one of my best friends when I bought that incense, the box of incense. And I still have it, even though it's been a while, because it's a big box, but it's also because I don't tend to use it a lot. I tend to use different kind of incense sticks. But that one is, to me, it's important to understand that I don't use it just to have a nice smell in the house. It's something that is actually votive. It's almost an act of a prayer, and it needs to be done with a certain intention. And so I would definitely, if I had a print of this card, like a nice print of this card, I would definitely hang it frame it and hang it, because it's, you know, other than the fact that the meaning of the card is very important for me, it's actually a beautiful card. I really believe that it's a beautiful card. The next question is, what card would be your pet? I had to go with the Queen of Swords because it's a cat and it's a very cheeky, almost mean kind of cat. And I have to say this, most of the time, unless it's a cat themed deck in which you have cats in each and every card, and I have a few of those, but unless it's that kind of deck, whenever it's a general animal themed deck, you will find cats, but you will find them as the Queen of Wands. And I have to agree with that. A cat is a performer. A cat is a classic performer. And as a matter of fact, to be honest with you, not both my cats, I have 2 cats, one male, one female, but the female is a drama queen. She's a drama queen. She would just con you into feeding her 50 times. And if you don't know her, she would definitely do that to you. She would appear. I swear to you, she actually can change her aspect, her look, in such a way to show you that she's starving. If you're a someone that you don't come to the house very often, every now and then, and she doesn't know you, you don't know the cat, she will con you. She will. She has a way to, whenever I come home, even though my husband might be at home, for example, but I come home after a few hours, she will come to me and she will pretend that she's been meowing for me the whole day. So her voice will be all thin and almost as if she had a sore throat. I kid you not. And then I would go to my husband, I would say, what happened? And she was like, no, she was fine just a minute ago. But because she wants me to feel guilty, she will do that to me. And it's like, at the beginning, I thought to myself, that's not possible. It requires a lot of, a structured mind and a structured brain to actually build this kind of situation. But no, she does it. I can assure you that's what she does. She pretends that she's lost her voice because I am such an ungrateful parent that I left her alone for hours and she's been calling me. And by the time I finally go back home, she's lost her voice. And no, she's been fine. She's been fine the whole afternoon. So that to me is the typical performer. She's a drama queen. However, I really love the fact that this is a Queen of Swords, because it also gives you the kind of resilience, the 7 lives the cats have. And the Queen of Swords to me does show that. It shows the resilience. It shows the fact that they pick themselves up, and no matter what happens to them, yes, they rely on human, it's true, but on the other hand, cats could do okay on their own. And I really like that, that kind of parallel, that kind of comparison between, the domestic cat and the wild cat. And any wild cat can actually relax in a home, but any home cat, a homebody like a domestic cat, if left alone, they actually find any way they can to survive, to adapt and survive. And I really love that, because it does remind me of that aspect of the archetype of the Queen of Swords. So the next question is very funny. It's what's your most favorite card and why? And it has to be the 6 of Cups, because if you have a look at this yokai, it's the funniest thing ever. So basically, this yokai has got 1 leg, as you can tell, and they hop around, and their head is the shape of an umbrella. And they also have 1 eye, and they have a mouth with a tongue. And what they do, they just hop around in the rain and they lick people. They literally just hop around and they lick people's legs. So if it's raining and you feel like something is licking your leg, it's this little guy. I think that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And I really love the fact that it refers to the 6 of Cups, because the 6 of Cups to me, it refers back to the kind of innocence when you can actually remember a time in which you were able to laugh, an open-hearted kind of laugh, because you had nothing to be worried about yet. And it is the innocence, and also the kind of being a bit mischievous of this card really goes well with the meaning of the 6 of Cups. So the next question is, what is your least favorite card and why? And it has to be the Hangman, because so I have to admit at the beginning I couldn't really tell what this yokai was about, because I could tell that there was, I don't know, maybe an arm here, and I could tell that there's a tree, and I could tell that obviously it's a hangman because it's hanging from the tree branch, but I couldn't really tell what this looked like. And then I did the research, and it's basically a head of a horse. And so this yokai is, it's actually quite unpleasant in the sense that the legend says that these are the ghosts of the horses that were left by the road, by the side of the road by travelers that you know, couldn't take them with them anymore because maybe the horse got injured or they got tired, maybe they couldn't feed them, they were just exhausted, they couldn't bury them either, so they just left them there by the side of the road. And I thought that it's just a really sad thing to think about. And so the horses transformed themselves into this kind of spirit, this yokai. They climb on the top of the tree and they started hanging from the one of the branches, and they were waiting for other people to come by, other travelers to come by, and sometimes they would just release their hold on the branch and they will fall on top of people as some kind of a revenge, I guess. And it's I mean, it's my least favorite card because I do see that perfectly when it comes to the meaning of the hangman, this sacrifice. But the hangman, to me, a way to look at the hangman is also a sacrifice that has absolutely no, it wasn't a necessary sacrifice. It's as if it were, I know that there's that sense of changing perspective, looking at things from a different perspective, in a different way, maybe a different state of mind, etc., which is the positive side of the card. But in many cases, and especially when you pull the card in reverse, you would see that it's actually an unnecessary sacrifice. And it reminds me every time that I see this card. And as a matter of fact, when I read the meaning of this card, thinking about other decks, whenever I see the hangman, especially when it comes out reverse, I am reminded of this legend. And I feel that kind of sense of unnecessary sadness that it is expressed by the card. So this is probably my least favorite card of the whole deck. So the next question is, which card in the deck do you feel most represents you right now? And I had to go with the Three of Wands. Now, as you can tell, the Three of Wands is a very simple, almost minimalist kind of drawing, in which you can tell there's this frog-like creature that first is like a tadpole, and then it's got perhaps a couple of limbs and a tail, and then it's got all its limbs, and it jumps from one stick or wand to the next one, and then on the last one it actually jumps towards something that is unknown. And that's exactly me in the last few months, because I am let's say I'm kind of transitioning from when it comes to my career, and I'm jumping into the void without really knowing what's going to happen, if it's going to be okay. But I have been in the past, I've been so ready to make this jump, but I actually feel kind of not necessarily confident, but hopeful, which is the kind of hope you can tell is reflected into this yokai, because it's time to go. And I really feel like, yes, it's time to move on. It's time to do something that I actually really enjoy doing. And it's you never know if it's going to be okay or not. Not everything goes well. And I've seen it sometimes. Some things that I've done in the past did not go well. So I found myself in this situation before where unfortunately I fell. Instead of finding another branch to jump onto, I actually fell. But you have to do it. You have to do it anyway. And that's the meaning of the Three of Wands for me. Like, wheels are in motion. If you stop now, it doesn't make any sense, because you've done so much, you've grown so much to be able to do this jump into the unknown. You might as well go for it. You know, that's the difference between, I think, a lot of people that seek security and others that seek adventure. And I don't mean it to sound like, oh, there's so much cooler to seek adventure. It's just the way I'm built and I'm wired, and I'm probably gonna end up, you know, on my bum, on the floor, on my bum, like I did many times before. But it's something that I feel like I have to do. And so it's a card that, to me, it's representing probably the fear of whatever is going to happen next, that I really have no idea what's going to be, but also the hope that it's going to be okay. So the next question is, which card in this deck makes you laugh? And it has to be the Tanuki. So the magician is represented by the Tanuki. The Tanuki is very funny as a concept, because it's a badger, but it looks like a dog. So it's a bit of a mix between a badger and a dog. And it is represented a magician because it's actually a trickster. So they would trick you into giving them money. They would trick you into doing all sorts of things. And there's children rhymes with the Tanuki as a protagonist, and there's legends and stories. And every time I read them, I laugh because they are so funny. And it feels like, so amongst all of yokais, I would say the Tanuki is not dangerous in the sense that it will not kill human beings, whereas the majority of the others will. But they will trick you, you know, and it will be like a really funny or whimsical kind of joke or trick. So I really, every time that I look at this card, I remember all the legends that I've been reading, the stories that I've been reading about them, and it makes me laugh. So the next question is, which card in this deck makes you feel calm? And I think I'm going to be a bit with an odd choice now, because I'm actually showing the Devil card. But this depends not necessarily on the meaning of the Devil card, which to me, it's really not a positive card. But because of the legend behind it, if you look at the drawing and the card, it shows you someone who's trying to protect their home with these prayer flags, and obviously this spirit that is trying to come in. Now, I don't know if you watched, there's a show now, it's called From, and I think, if I'm not wrong, I think it's the same producers of Lost, because the concept is very similar. Now, if you haven't watched the show, neither Lost nor From or either, I will not give you any spoiler, but this reminds me so much of From, one specific concept in the show. And how, I don't know, somehow, because I've been watching the show, I've been watching season 1, I've been watching a couple of episodes into season 2, and this particular thing in the show makes you, I don't want to give out, and it's very difficult not to give out any spoilers, but in any case, the reason why this particular thing in the show is very important is the reason why when I look at this card, it makes me feel calm. Like calm in the sense of, okay, it's the calm you feel in between two storms. It's the calm that you reach at a certain point after a danger you have escaped from, but you still know that there is danger out there, and you know, you're just taking a bit of a breather right now. You're just taking a break. You're just calming yourself down. So that's the way in which I interpret, you know, the calm, the concept of calm coming from this this representation. Now, ironically, I do not necessarily see this as anything that relates to the Devil card. For me, the Devil is about shame. It's about our own shame, our own the stuff we don't even want to look about ourselves, because we don't want to go there. And in other cases, you know, one of the better interpretations of the card for me is about distraction. So you're just not focusing on what you're doing, you're being distracted by something else. So I don't necessarily recognize how they interpreted this card with this yokai. And if you know this deck, or if you know that legend, or if you've watched from, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think, because it would be interesting, because I'm sure that there's a way to connect these two, but I just can't see it for now. But this is the card that makes me feel calm, because I know that, you know, somehow I know that the meaning of this particular object means that I can take a breather. Right now I can actually take a break. Now, as I said before, there are other questions, but this is going to be a very long video, so I just chose a few of the prompts of the questions. What I wanted to do was I wanted to show you these other two decks, but I also wanted to show you how they pair up, let's say, together. We've got the Yokai Yochi here, we've got the Japanese Tarot, the Italian version, and here I think that Laura Tuan is actually quite famous, because she was, at least in my collection, I have a few decks from her. One of the original Celtic decks was drawn by her, so I've known her for a while. And so this is, by the way, I love this deck, but it's huge. I mean, this is pretty much a standard tarot size, and as you can tell, it's just really huge, which is, as you know, if you watch my channel, you know that I have small hands, but not just that. I did break a couple of fingers when I was playing volleyballs when I was younger. And therefore, I actually have pain sometimes when it comes to the wet season and the cold season. So I don't know, whenever I see these decks, I'm like, how am I going to shuffle this? So I always shuffle off camera, because I look incredibly awkward sometimes shuffling like this. I mean, it still works, but... So this is the Japanese Tarot, and this is the Oracle de Kamiya Yokai, and this is an oracle deck. It's really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And the product value, let me tell you, it's a mass market deck. What's the publisher? Le Courrier du Livre. But you can easily find this. So I found this on Amazon Italy for a very reasonable price. And I'm guessing you can easily find it on Amazon France as well. It comes with a guidebook, a nice guidebook, and a nice tarot bag. And look at the backs, the koi on the backs, just so beautiful. So we have these three decks, and just to show you, I just want to show you quickly. So here they are. So what I generally do, I keep this one in the middle. This deck is sort of peepish, not entirely, not 100% peep, in the sense that you do have an association of some elements to the meaning of the cards. For example, this is the 10 of Cups, and it does show you not just the 10 cups, but also, for example, you got the tsunami, the Hokusai, the representation of the tsunami by Hokusai, or, you know, the 3 swords. You've got the, what is it, Wisteria? I think it's Wisteria. I don't know the name in Italian, sorry. I think it's Wisteria, which is associated in many cases with the loss or heartbreak. And these are the core cards. For the 7 of Cups, you've got Dragonfly. So you once you go back to the guidebook, for example, there are associations between these elements, and the majors, they're all referred to yokai. So you will have some of the same yokai that you've seen here, or that you see in the oracle deck. You will find them in this deck as well. And I just wanted to show you these ones together. They are quite beautiful. I actually don't mind the fact that these two are in color, full color, and the Yokai Yochi is not, because I think that they pair up rather well in any case. So as you can see, the style, the art style is actually quite similar, which I really like, especially between these two decks, which, you know, they obviously show more echoes and resonances because they're both in color. But if you look at the Yokai Yochi, you will see there's a lot of very similar pen work, for example. The lines are very, the use of the line, the stroke is very similar as well. And because the thematic is pretty much the same, you will have a lot of references, and you can have a conversation between these three decks. And I really love the fact that when, for example, there's a peep coming up in the Japanese tarot, it does match really well with the minimalist style of the Yokai Yochi, but it still has that kind of splashes of color, which will make it pair well with the oracle. See, I really love the fact that they have that kind of same expressions. For example, the characters. I really love these three together. It's in a way, it's not an easy kind of reading. It's something that would probably require a bit of an introspection because, as I said, well, these two are tarot decks, obviously, but this oracle does not have keywords, as you can tell. It's got the name in Japanese, in kanji, and yata no kagami. So it's basically the romaji, so the transliteration into English alphabet, or, you know, Roman alphabet of the Japanese name, but it doesn't have keywords. So unless you know your yokai, and let me tell you, I've been studying Japanese supernatural folklore for many years, and I still don't know all of them. I think there's hundreds, there's literally hundreds of them. So it's impossible. Obviously, the most famous ones, you know, the woman with the long neck, etc., will be easier to remember. But I have no idea what this is. Abracabo. I really don't know what that is. So that's it. I just wanted to show you these decks. In particular, I wanted to do this deep dive into the Yokai Yochi because it expresses the love that I have for everything that is related to Japan and its culture. And the culture of supernatural, which is, you know, if for someone who reads tarot, it's always fascinating. It's always very interesting to see and to know. And thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. More to come. Have a great day.